If you haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to become a part of our community. It would be a great pleasure to have you join us. And if you're already subscribed, I kindly request your support by clicking the thumbs up button and leaving a positive comment. Your engagement with this video means a lot to me, and I truly appreciate it. Thank you for being here. E4. King's pawn opening. The king's pawn opening move is both popular and logical. It controls the center, opens lines for both the queen and the bishop, and usually leads to an open game in which tactics, rather than slow maneuvering, predominates. E5. King's pawn game. Black responds symmetrically, making a direct challenge to the central squares. Knight F3. King's knight opening. With the possible exception of f4, this is the most logical second move against black's symmetrical answer to the king's pawn. The knight attacks e5, clears the way for an eventual castle, and rests on its best defensive square. Knight c6. Queen's knight variation. Now, when white plays 3.nc3 instead of the Ruy Lopez, it's the three knights game, a leisurely system. Bishop b5. Ruy Lopez Spanish. This is the Ruy Lopez move. It is designed to maintain long-term pressure on black's center. If driven away, the king's bishop will take up a position at b3 or c2 to focus on a kingside attack or on the central squares. d6. Ruy Lopez Spanish, Old Steinitz defense. The Steinitz defense breaks the potential pin of the knight by aiming at bishop in d7. The king's bishop can be fianchettoed in some lines. d4. Bishop g4. Inaccuracy. E takes d4 was best move. d5. a6. Bishop takes c6 check. Inaccuracy out of opening book. Bishop in a4 would have been in the Ruy Lopez Spanish, Old Steinitz defense book opening. Partially pins black's pawn at b7, forks black's king and black's pawn at b7, and blocks black's pawn at c7. B takes c6. Protects black's king. D takes c6. White wins a knight and a pawn for a bishop. h6. Knight in e7 was best. Castle king side. c4 was best. Knight f6. Attacks white's pawn at e4, but inaccuracy. Knight at e7 was best. Queen d3. Frees white's knight at f3 from the pin and removes the threat on white's pawn at e4. Bishop e7. Makes way for a castle to the king's side. Knight c3. Castle king side. Knight d2. Queen e8. Attacks white's pawn at c6. Queen c4. Protects white's pawn at c6. Rook b8. Inaccuracy. a5 was best. Knight b3. Rook b6. Removes the threat on black's pawn at a6, but bishop at e6 was best. Knight a5. Blocks black's pawn at a6, but inaccuracy. Knight at d5 was best. King h7. Mistake. Best move was bishop in h7. b3. Bishop e6. Attacks white's queen. Queen d3. Moves it to safety. Knight h5. Rook d1. Knight in d5 or pawn in f4 was best. f5. f3. f4. Blunder. Slightly better is f takes e4 or queen g6. Knight d5. Forks black's rook at b6 and black's pawn at c7 and blocks black's pawn at d6. Bishop takes d5. Removes the threat on black's pawn at c7 and black's rook at b6. E takes d5 check. Checks black's king with a discovered check. White wins a bishop for a knight. White is up a pawn. King h8. Moves it out of check. Knight b7. Takes the knight away from the edge of the board. Bishop f6. Mistake. Knight g3 was best. Rook b1. Bishop in d2 was best. Queen f7. Mistake. Knight in g3 or bishop in h4 was slightly better. a4. c4 was best. Bishop g5. Bishop in h4 was best. a5. Threatens black's rook at b6. Rook b4. Moves it to safety and blocks white's pawn at b3. c3. Threatens black's rook at b4. Rook b5. Moves it out of immediate danger, but e4 was best. c4. Attacks black's rook at b5. Rook takes b7. C takes b7. Adds a promote threat at b7 and creates a passed pawn on b7. White wins the exchange rook for knight. Rook b8. Attacks, blocks white's pawn at b7 and removes the promote threat. b4. Rook takes b7. b5. A takes b5. C takes b5. Black wins to pawns for a pawn. Rook takes b5 was best. Queen e8. Queen c4. Queen a8. Rook b8 was best. Queen c6. Queen a7 check. b6. Removes the threat on white's king and attacks black's queen. C takes b6. Protects black's queen and isolates white's pawn at a5. A takes b6. Threatens black's queen and creates a passed pawn on b6. White wins a pawn for a pawn. Queen a6. Bishop d2. Queen takes d6 was best. Knight f6. Takes the knight away from the edge of the board, but king h7 was best. Queen takes d6. Threatens black's pawn at e5 and creates a passed pawn on d5, but bishop e1 was best. e4. Slightly better is knight in d7. Bishop takes f4. Bishop takes f4. Attacks white's queen and blocks white's pawn at f3, but inaccuracy e takes f3 was best. Queen takes f4. E takes f3. Queen takes f3. Rook takes b6. Rook takes b6. Queen takes b6 check. King h1. Queen d6. h3. King h7. Queen e2. Knight g8. g5 was best. Queen e6. Queen c2. Check was best. Queen takes e6. D takes e6. Knight f6. e7. Mistake, rook d8 was best. King g8. Rook e1. Moves it behind the passed pawn at e7, but mistake, rook d7 was best. King f7. King h2. King e8. Rook e5. Best move was rook e3. Knight g8. King g3. Knight takes e7. King g4. Rook a5 was best. King f7 releases the pin on black's knight. h4. Knight g8. King f4. King f6. g4. Knight e7. h5. g5 check. g6 was better. King e4. King f7. Rook a5. Knight g8. Blunder. King e5. King g7. Black gives white a forced checkmate opportunity. Much better is knight e7. Rook a7 check. King h8. King e6. After this move, black resigned, resulting in a win for white. However, let's explore what would have happened if the game had continued. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.